Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 30, another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So let's crack on. The first one is Tesla. Never really far away from a Tesla story. So there's two in one for this one. First of all, Tesla have launched their full self-driving mode, and it's very much in quotes in that, first thing I guess is interesting about that is it's nearly $200 a month to lease or to subscribe to full driving mode, and therefore that opens up that same old question about, well, what other features of the car can they turn off or on? Things like, anti-lock braking or indicators or heated seats, those sorts of things are all turned on and offable by software. So cars of the future, you may find you get in there one day, you haven't paid your subscription to your brakes. That might be a bit interesting. Obviously that's a dystopian view. But the second thing is would you trust your life to self-driving mode anyway, when, as you can see from Jordan Nelson, his video which he posted on Twitter, a Tesla thinks that the moon is an amber light, a traffic light about to go to red. So it's telling him in his car every couple of seconds to slow down, slow down, slow down. The moon is out. So if you can't tell the difference between the moon, the sun and an amber light, then you should really not be trusting your life or paying $200 a month for this thing anyway, I would suggest. So a lot of work to be done here. So full self-driving mode is very much in quotes at the moment because there are lots of sort of legal questions about it at the moment, whether they can even call it that, etc., etc. So more to come. Please do not use this mode if you value your life. There you go. Hypocrite commits. Now this is a little bit curious, this one. That's a two-parter. So what is a hypocrite commit? Now this was a term that was brought to fame last year really with some University of Minnesota researchers so this is using the Linux kernel. Now Linux is an operating system that is open source, so if you want to add something to it, then you can add some code to it. Obviously it needs to go through some checkers and it needs to go through kernel.org or basically the Linux people, and they say, yep, that's a good one. But if you spot an error in the Linux code, or if you spot a feature that is needed, you can go and add it. You add it to a backlog, it all gets checked and gets submitted and then gets built into the new Linux kernel. So what these University of Minnesota researchers did last year, they had a sort of a cheeky thought and said, well, could we just do lots and lots of sort of low-grade updates? So could we just do sort of there's some comments missing here, or there's an error that doesn't quite return the right error, that sort of thing. And what they did is they submitted what were called hypocrite commits, and these were low-grade, almost pointless commits, and their point was, well, if you can get these through, maybe you can start to align a load of them up and they could sort of create some vector for an attack. If people weren't watching, essentially letting these low-grade ones through, could they create something bigger? Clearly the Linux community did not like this. Like, you do not experiment with a huge piece of open source software like this. And the unit researchers at Minnesota had to had to apologize after the complaint was made to them, etc., etc. So there's still rumblings of this going on. So lots and lots of new commits are going in there. Things like errors aren't recording or returning the exact error back. So one thing that was pulled out very specifically was that all of a sudden there's quite a lot of people from Huawei, for instance, submitting very low grade updates. So if you look at the open source, or at least the commits that are going through, then nearly everyone is a sort of a fairly big feature. All the ones from Huawei are errors or error codes or that sort of thing. So absolutely, I mean, the article I was reading was basically saying, oh, that's curious. There seemed to be a big influx of Huawei, but there's no reason for that at all. Maybe they're just trimming lots of errors because they're annoying, and nobody likes errors to be incorrect. However, point is if this is open source and there is a vector for attack within open source, will open source start to have to clamp down and say, well, we can't allow everybody to start submitting it, or they're going to have to start, like if you don't play nice, we're going to have to close the doors a little bit. So that's really, really a weird, interesting, slight rabbit hole kind of topic. Is open source about to die because people can't be trusted? There you go. So the Anthony Hopkins movie, he didn't direct it, he's just starring in it, called Zero Contact, is going to be released as an NFT. This is Viewly.io, which is a new NFT marketplace, and they're going to release 5 versions of this film. Each tier of this release of an NFT will give you the digital right to own the film, i.e. you've just bought the film, you can watch it. And I assume the way this will work is you have to watch it on the site and therefore verify that you have it. I assume that's how that works. There's very little information actually on their site itself. However, if you buy the base tier, you'll get the film, and every tier up from there, the next 4 tiers, you'll get extra bits and bobs and exclusive content, etc., etc. So, so there you go. So we're seeing more and more of this, and what this does, it allows a one-to-one relationship between your ownership of it and your viewing of it. So this is a really interesting one for piracy, for instance, or anti-piracy in this case, so that you are connected to it and you can watch it. So if somebody else wants to buy it, they have to buy their own version of it and watch it on the site. So very interesting. There you go, NFTs. So as I say, we're seeing lots of programs being commissioned with either NFTs in it, about NFTs, so it's very much the hot topic right now. And you've got somebody like Anthony Hopkins movies being released. So there you go. Tokyo, the Olympics started Friday, so a couple of days ago now. And one of the fun facts you might not know is the Olympic medals were actually made from recycled electronics and devices. So this was a really good initiative. So this was actually a countrywide initiative in Tokyo, in Japan, and essentially you could donate lots of devices, your old phones, your old tablets, anything like that, and they could recover the silver, gold, and in this case bronze out of it as well. And that's what most, I think something like 90% of the metal used in the medals are made from recycled or recovered metal. So this includes 32 kilos of gold. Gold is a great conductor and is used in electronics quite a lot. 3,500 kilos, so 3.5 tons of silver, and nearly 2.5 tons of bronze as well. So it was a really good initiative, so very environmentally friendly. Now Rio did do this a little bit, but it was more like, well, they were going to get some of the gold from some recycled stuff, whereas I think the Japanese version of this is get everybody to actually donate their old devices and get them out of circulations and recycled. So brilliant. So this is really about supply chains and how essentially if you make this sort of stuff, electronic stuff, then you might want to think of how you can get the public to recycle your devices without using the Olympics. Twitter always throwing in little tests here and there, and they've done another one. So some people have noticed that they now have a downvote or a dislike button. It's not really sure which one it is at the moment, but there seem to be 3 different versions of it out there, 3 different UIs. It's not really clear whether this is just an experiment to get some data on an initial set or whether this is going to be rolled out to everybody, but downvotes and upvotes are actually quite useful. They're used in other platforms as well, just to sort of prioritize some of the really good content and downvote some others. So it gives a little bit of more of the public view on what is good content and what should be shared. So not quite sure whether it's up or down arrow or love and down or whether it's thumbs up, thumbs down at the moment, but that might be quite useful and also quite interesting. Again, only on iOS at the moment apparently, and only very selected users, and nobody's really sure why they're getting chosen, but there's some screenshots there of some of the different UI. The UI that you're seeing from here is actually from Twitter itself on the tweet. So interesting. Japan in the news twice in a Dinosaw. So they have smashed the internet speed record. So this is 319 terabits per second. So the previous record was 172 terabits per second. Also, it was a code thing between the UK and Japan, but this is purely Japanese researchers. And so just to give you a clue about how fast that is, that's about 8,500 DVDs per second can be transferred down fibre optic cables. So this is the same size of fibre optic cable than a normal fibre optic cable. So it's not just they've just increased the size of it, it's the same. It uses 4 strands, 4 cores, but what it's actually doing is it's got a laser that can transmit on 552 different wavelengths. So it fires those down there, and those are decoded and multiplexed as it's called, and they're all sort of bitted together. And you can get 320 nearly terabits. So that is phenomenally fast. What would you do with that? Even if it can get to the end of your street, and then you've got sort of cabinet to home, for instance, can then split up, that is super fast. So It's not without its problems. There's quite a lot of laser goodness that needs to go on and decoding that needs to go on. But the test was over a simulated couple of thousand kilometers, so it's a real world application. It's just the actual technology in it is a little bit tricky for everyday use at the moment. But there you go. Look out for amazing speed internet anytime soon. So there you go. And finally, I think last month I reported on Jonathan Lang, who had an idea of sending 3 Apple AirTags, one to North Korea, one to Elon Musk, and one to Tim Cook at Apple, and all via DHL. And it was a little bit of a jape because obviously it sort of slightly underpinned just how shoddy DHL were really when you watch his videos. So the 2 from North Korea actually got to North Korea, but they seem to have been delayed and or denied. But we'll, watch this space. Elon Musk ones has gone AWOL. Nothing's happened to that one. But brilliantly, Apple sent a message back. It wasn't actually from Tim Cook, but at least it was from Apple. Worthy of note, I think, is that the paper had rounded edges on it, which is a nice touch. Well done, Apple. So other than that, I just thought I'd give you an update on that. So if you send AirTags to Apple, they don't seem to mind, but you probably won't get a response next time because I've already done it once. There you go. Very interesting. Thank you very much. Hopefully that was useful, and I will see you next week.